Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kim Barrett Show. I am your host, Kim Barrett, and today we are joined by the lovely Juliana Marulanda. Now, if you're an agency owner or someone that's ever faced operational issues, this is the episode for you. We talk about her background, starting out working in some of the pretty large sporting events and managing them operationally, all the way to what she's doing now, helping agency owners install better operation systems so that they can scale. And of course, if we can help you scale with your marketing, just head over to our free Facebook community, www.joinmygroup.com.au, where we help you grow with marketing and sales and all that fun stuff. But until then, let's jump into the show. Juliana, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you making the time.
Oh, thanks so much for having me here. Super excited to be connected digitally across the pond.
I know it's great to have you from the other side of the world. So good to have you here. Now, I always like to start the podcast off the same way every time, which is if I met you at a party and we were chatting and I said to you, Juliana, what is it that you actually do? What's your go-to answer?
So I used to joke that sometimes I would just sell air. People would buy it, but I've got a little bit more sophisticated than that, right? And usually I say that, I'm really here helping agency owners design high performance teams, systems, and processes so that they can truly spend more time with their family, or even start a second, third, fourth business.
And what got you into that? Because I have to assume that as a little girl, you probably didn't say, when I grow up, I want to help agency owners to get back more time and do that sort of stuff. What was kind of the pathway that got you to the point where you're at right now?
So I've been doing business operations now for about 20 years. And I started off, out of college, working on Wall Street, like making that money, looking at operating, models, financial models for like 16 hours a day. Not so fun. And then I transitioned into working in sports and entertainment venues, doing operations there. And it was, going from a desk job to running around like a, crazy chicken without her head on, not knowing how to manage at all. I had no clue what I was doing, because I was 22 at the time. And so like the gig was almost like a traveling manager's. Like they'll pick you up and they'll throw you in a new city, where you're managing operations for things like Super Bowl and Ryder Cup and, USTA tennis, like all these crazy events. And it was like, all right, Juliana, go and, hire your team of 40 to 50 people in this hiring fair where you're going to interview 100 people a day and then train them for 2 or 3 days. And training was really excellent, right? Because I looked like I was 13. And like I get there and I'm like, I'm the manager. And we're talking about like football fields across where resources are completely distributed. And then it's go and operate, about $1 million a week, rinse, wash, repeat. And so very quickly, I was like, I'm gonna see if I can hack managing because I didn't know how to manage. And like my thought process, my mantra became, okay, how do I manage less? That was my ultimate goal. By training faster and hiring better. So it was manage less, train faster, hire better. And because I was doing that every 6 to 8 weeks, rinse, wash, repeat, right? Scaling up and scaling down. Fast forward, had different operations jobs since then. And when I started my business in 2015, what I had seen was people still didn't want to manage, whether they knew how to or not, business owners. And, they're like, I don't want to become HR. I don't want to manage people. I'm not here for the drama of it. And agency owners were actually really on the vanguard of, now it's like we're quoting it in a pandemic-ish world, like remote work, right? But there was distributed teams, there was a distributed workforce, hybrid teams, people were part-time, full-time, employee, strategic partnerships, collaborations. And how do you manage deliverables and workflows across all these different humans and spaces and geography, and do it in a high performance way. So that's really why I picked digital agency owners, because they were on the vanguard at the beginning of that, and I wanted to get in on it. Since then, we've helped over 300 agencies, which is really, exciting, and really figuring out what works and what really doesn't work.
I'm sure, like, I always, because what works is always good, but I always like to know the things that don't work, right? Because I feel like so many of us do them, and like we have a digital agency, so my smile and head nods are because I'm like, yes, I know all these pains. Like it's frustrating. I can only assure and reaffirm and all the things that you're going to be saying, and for people like that I've seen, especially ones that we have a mastermind as well, and we help agency owners and things like that too. They always seem to want to have a silver bullet that's going to solve everything. They're just like, cool, but like, Julian, like, tell me, like, what's the one magic software that I can use to manage all of this, or like, what's the one magic pool or something like that? What are a few of the kind of commonalities that when people first come to you before they obviously get your help that they think is the solution that actually probably isn't?
What do people think is the solution? So hiring more people, and I talk about this as sort of like, throwing people at a process challenge, right? Because it's like, I just need a body. Anybody, give me a body. Right? Like, if you're in a constraint, right? And totally get that, right? Like, someone needs to handle it, because if not, it's usually someone in leadership that's spread too thin, or it's the owner that's spread too thin, and then you're taking away resources from, managing other parts of the business or growing or scaling. But the challenge is like, if you're losing money and someone wasn't doing their job, and there's no training and there's no process, and then you stick somebody else in, and there's no training and there's no process, right? Like, even if that person is amazing, right? Like, once that person leaves, because eventually, people will leave, there will still be no training and no process unless that person puts it in. And most people that are really good at their jobs, right, that you're hiring for, whether it's a marketing manager, an account manager, right, like, they're usually there to do the job, not to document it or really processize like the actual, how does it function, right? Like, they're not hired to be a trainer or an operator, right? They're hired to do a specific thing. So I think that's one of the biggest things. It's like, if I can just throw people or money at something, it'll eventually work. And I mean, and a lot of times it does, right? But not sustainably. And when you start to see rapid growth, right? Like, if you're lucky enough to be in a place where you're experiencing rapid growth, that sustainability thing really becomes important. And so does profitability, right? Because, like, if you're just throwing money or people at certain things, your profitability is automatically going to go down. And then your ability to invest in the things that you really want, right? Investing in growth, that becomes harder.
And how have you found, because I know that there's a lot of, and I've seen this with a few agency owners that we've kind of worked with, is that they go and then they put some processes and systems in place, but then it's like they put them in place because it seems good, but then not everyone uses them. Like,
Yes.
how have you found to like make the actual processes and procedures like sticky, where it's like, hey, if we're using this project management software, it's like, update it, like, just simple things like that.
So I'll kind of talk about this twofold, right? Usually when I talk to agency owners and they're like, yeah, we got a system, and I'm like, cool. I'm so excited for you. Yes, first step. And then I'm like, is everybody using it? And they're like, well, some people are using it, kind of. All right. And then I'm like, and what was the last time you updated it? Well, we updated ish, right? And then I'm like, okay, cool. And out of the people who are using it, is it being done consistently? Ish, right? So I'm a lot of like ish territory. um, and it's just such a pain in the butt when you're in this ish territory, right? Because from a founder standpoint, from an owner standpoint, then you don't have visibility. right? Like the inputs aren't accurate of what people are doing and producing and deliverables and timelines and all this stuff, right? Like that stuff isn't accurate. So for me to be able to make decisions on hiring, on investing, on can I move stuff around because we have a new client, or we got new client requests, but they're actually giving us money for it. Yay, we're super excited. Like, how do we shuffle? Like, I don't have visibility on what to do. So it's very difficult for me to make decisions as an owner. Right. So that's kind of on this side. And that's such a common practice. And Kim, I'm sure you see that all the time, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure you see people in the ish territory, right?
Well, even same as I know, like other people, ourselves in the team. Like I remember just even yesterday checking one of our project management software, and I'm like, for these clients, it's been updated. For this client, for some reason, it hasn't been
not
updated.
so much. Yeah, not so much. And so then when it comes to, right, and I'm going to use a very like technical term, right? When it comes to change management, right? When you're implementing anything, whether it's a system, a software, new documentation, instructions, training, right? Like anything that you are adding that's new to how you operate in the business. So I always say the first step is getting buy-in, right? Because some teams are implementing stuff. Like, I mean, I've had clients who have been in business for 20 years. They're like, we've been in business for 20 years. They're like, now they're trying to change things up. And the team's like, what are you doing? Why are you touching it? Stop touching it. Stop it. Right? Like, so, right. You have an existing culture, or an existing team, maybe. Right. And so now you got to get buy-in from that team. Right. Because what's going to inevitably happen, right, is that if you have an existing team and they're not doing it, and then you've put in all these new shiny toys, right, of systems and processes and operations, and then you have new team members using it, now you're going to have a culture clash. And that's icky too, right? Because a lot of the sometimes what I see in inconsistency is like, okay, well, who's actually doing it and who's not, right? The other things where you have inconsistencies, it's like, and we see this a lot, right? Like we have a team makeup where you have a small leadership team of employees, and then you've got people who are executing who are freelancers or contract, right? Or vendors. So now we have like inconsistencies in that, right? Or, and I've seen it where people have several tools and people are doing their own thing because they're trying to find their own organization. And that's a hot mess. So I think first step is getting buy-in from the team, right? It's like, hey, how are you using this? Are you using it? Why are you using it? How do you think it can get better? And for a lot of leadership, sometimes it's like, oh man, I gotta have a meeting to get feedback from the team, and this is overhead. I wouldn't have time for this, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't have time in the future to then go back, right, to everybody. So I think first step is buy-in. And then also with the buy-in, people feel like they're included in this decision, and they understand the why we're doing this and how it's going to positively affect them, right? It's not that we're trying to double the work. It's not that we're trying to be like Big Brother, like now have we're trying to actually make things easier for them. We're not trying to autobot their job or like fire them eventually. Like what we're trying to do is really make the work easier so that they can have a more stable, fulfilling, job. And so that eventually we can get more clients and pay them more. In theory, right? Like as most owners who are well intentioned with their team, we want to provide that. So really having buy-in, having them understand why we're doing this, getting them to actually give inputs on what things are working and not working, I think that's a huge step that's often missed. And then the second step that I think is often missed is actually helping them create the habit around the new systems. I think that the beginning of every process is actually habit. It's not the process itself, right? We're like, we got this process, now follow it. Yeah, but they've been doing it a certain way for so long, right? Or they're coming in from someone else doing it like a way for so long, and we may or may not like the way that they've been doing it, or maybe they're doing it fantastically and now we want the rest of the team to adopt it, right? But someone's behavior needs to change. So now we have to help with habit formation, right? And if we think about habit formation, it takes anywhere between 28 to 45 days to create a habit, right? So if we think that they're going to do something immaculately like the next day, usually not the case, right? So doing things such as like setting up reminders, doing positive reinforcement on the people who are doing it publicly. So everybody else is like, oh my God, this is important. Leadership is actually caring about this. It's not just another shiny thing that they're trying to ask us to do. So gamifying it that way, creating reward systems, making it fun, anything that we can do to help the habit of the team to actually change. And then once we get that consistency, establishing ways of making sure that the information, the system, everything is updated consistently across the board, right? And now we start measuring it. And then we could do that with like metrics and performance KPIs and things of all that nature.
Yeah, I think that's hugely powerful. And yeah, as you say, that management of change, especially when you have consistently of changing and moving parts, which I think especially digital agencies or anyone that's online, it's like you're always going to have probably a relatively, maybe apart from the leadership team, but a fluid workforce from what I've observed. It's like people coming in and out. And as you say, then you've got your contractors, your freelancers, your external other agencies that are doing things for you as well. Like it's it can be a bit of a minefield. So yeah, I really like that. And do you find it the same approach and process for people when they're dealing with those contractors, freelancers, even other agencies, utilizing that same process to see how can we all get on board with, like why wouldn't you guys want to use this program? What program do you use? How can we make it work together? Or like, how do you find that meshing of those external ones as well? Is it basically the same process or anything different?
I think the piece where it gets a little tricky, right, is the legalities of where you're doing business and where other people are doing business, right? Because in theory, right, like if someone's not an employee, you can't tell them what system to use, right? However, and it depends on where you live, right? Like in the US or certain states versus Australia versus like if you're in Europe, I know people all over the world are listening. So, however, what you can do is set up your scope of work so that it works with your systems and processes, right? So if you're setting up your contracts, your scopes of work, your engagements, right? However you call them, with those vendors, contractors, whether you're being white labeled or co-labeled, or if you're white labeling, right? Now, depending on how, let's say, sophisticated the engagement is, right? Sometimes you might have some redundancy. Sometimes you can figure out like how you guys can work in tune, or how you can make the systems work together. And then sometimes if you really need the money, you're like, all right, crap, screw the system. We just need the cash, right? And that's all fair game. But we're like the place where you want to get to or achieve, right? Once, especially as you're more established, as an agency and as you're having more years in business, is really getting everyone on board with proven processes that work, that are going to deliver great quality and great results for your clients, right? And so whether they're employees, right, especially if they're employees, right? And then if you have contractors or freelancers or, other types of engagements, speaking about what does it look like to actually do the work inside of your scopes and contracts. So that way there's no surprises, people understand, the expectations are set, and then you can create a much more profitable engagement with these people.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense there. And from the perspective of all the different businesses that you've worked with, and obviously you mentioned kind of that first step of getting the buy-in and things like that, is there anything that people should be thinking about, or looking at even before that first step to make sure that they are aware that there is a problem, or like obviously sometimes, as I say, you can go in and check and see that things aren't being done, but is there anything that people should be really thinking about or focusing on to kind of preempt any potential future problems?
I think the sticking points of I think one of the easiest places to go to is, where are you losing money? Right? You're like, losing money here, right? And where do you have a lot of volume? Right? Like that's that's definitely gonna be like, oh my God, like we're either getting, and volume could look like, holy crap, we just got a bunch of clients, or this one client is feeding us a lot more work, right? Like our retainer just increased massively from this one client. Like, I mean, I've had clients who've had retainers that were like, $10K a month, and then they blew up to be like 100K a month, same client, right? Um, that's a big increase in volume. So really taking a look at, or we're just doing massive hiring. I had a client who was like, okay, we need to hire 20 people this quarter. Like, boom. So depending on where your volume is, that's the place where you're gonna need the most process. And I think the difficult part, right? I'm always a big proponent of getting batteries before the storm, not during the storm, because like it's really hard to create process while you're taking on all that volume, right? Because you're just like you're flying by the seat of your pants. Like in those moments, you're like, ah. And so there's ways to hack it. I always tell people like if you do find yourself in the storm, and trying to create process is do as much video as you possibly can that transcribes so that you can then later on turn that into SOPs, right? Or instructions or training. So that way you can verbally process as you're doing it. So you're double dipping on work that you're doing anyway, because you have to do it nonetheless, right? And usually during those times, you're going to be hiring anyway, and then automatically you have some level of training because chances are you're not going to have time to train anyway, right? Because you're still flying by the seat of your pants if you're riding a certain wave. So I think that's really useful. One of the things that we do is like I've been creating an assessment for the last 7 years since I started the business for agency owners so that they can actually see exactly, it's a heat map of where in their operations for things like sales, client onboarding, client management, reporting, because reporting can take up so much time. If you're an agency that does reporting, hiring, onboarding, performance. So you can see exactly where things are missing in your process and in your operations to really be able to quantify your operational performance. Because a lot of the times I think it's difficult when you're so close to it to be able to actually identify what the true thing is. A couple of examples are, I have clients that come to me and they're like, oh, Juliana, I just really need better time management. And I'm like, do you really need better time management or do you just need to delegate more? I'm like, how much more stuff can we just get off your plate? Right? Like, how many meetings can we clear off your calendar so you actually have like the time to do other things? Right? Because it may not be time management. It might just be we need to just get stuff out of your like doing of things. Right. And sometimes they're like, oh man, I lost a client. It could be, they're like, oh, was it production? Results were great, but the client onboarding was really bad. Right. They didn't like really build that trust with the client. And then they got poached. So it's really kind of pinpointing where the symptom is as we're feeling it as we're growing, and then where's the operational glitch.
I love that. I could probably sit here and ask you questions and pick your brain all day on these things, but I do want to make sure we stay on time here. And at this point, I like to ask a question, which is there a question that I haven't asked you yet that I should have?
I think maybe I don't know if it's a question per se, but it is something that I think a lot of owners go through with agencies is that they kind of plateau. Like maybe the question is like, where do agencies plateau? And so they kind of plateau at like the 1.3 million. Everyone's in the rush to get to a million, and then I've seen people, teams get stuck in the 1.3 for decades. Like from anywhere from like 2 or 3 years to decades, because it's like the same things that got you there don't get you to the next one, which is about like 3 million, right? Because now we have to start thinking more thoroughly about what does the quality of work look like? What does the communication look like? And there's a lot more intentionality that goes into breaking that next step. And then it's going into the 8 figures where we're now talking really about how do we have visibility across our team so that it can grow without you, right? It's no longer about can it operate, can it run without you? It's about can the business grow without you? Can you remove yourself from, doing the high level like fires with clients? Do we have leadership in place? Can we remove ourselves from strategy? That's usually a really hard one for agency owners. And then can we remove ourselves from sales and marketing? So that's the kind of like the plateaus that people will hit, and knowing that it's totally possible to like smash through those plateaus, and it just requires different resources.
Yeah, I like that. That's awesome. Great. So I'm glad I asked you that question to get that question from you. Now,
I'm glad you did too.
for anyone that's been listening and they said, "Look, I really want to know more about what Juliana's up to, how I can, find out more what she does." Where's the best place for people to connect with you online?
Yeah, absolutely. I know that scaling an agency can be extremely grueling, and the growing pains are real, but it actually doesn't have to be that hard. So I have a couple resources. I think the easiest thing to do is to join our newsletter. Once you do that, I think we've got a flow of like 6 months of like nothing but value. That everything for client onboardings, client management, and I'm very big on making sure that it's entertaining because ops can be a little boring sometimes, and also that you have like really actionable things to do. I believe that small steps can create a big impact, and you can find that at scaletime.co. That's co/podcast/ TKBS. So that'll be there, and then I've also got this 5-minute diagnostic. I know we talked about like, oh man, how do you find out like maybe where you're losing money or where potentially or where are my blind spots? And in 5 minutes with our diagnostic, and it's a free assessment, you can go and find out 50 operational gaps. And then we basically send you a heat map with some fancy results so you can really know like how you're doing operationally and what's the performance of your operations. I've been working on this forever, so it's super cool. And definitely go to that, take the time, and if you resonated with anything that I said, definitely jump on a call. I'll make sure that we find the right resources for you. And again, that's at scaletime.co/podcast/TKBS.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So, guys, wherever you're listening, check the show notes above or below. We'll have all the links there as well. And if you know someone who has an agency as well, maybe share this episode with them. Let them get some of Juliana's wisdom into their ears. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you making the time.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much. And I'm so happy that I got to chat with your audience.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you.